Hey guys, it's Lisa and welcome to my channel. Today we're going to work on a small vignette in the farmhouse kitchen area. I'm almost done with that little room, and then I think I'm going to move on to the she shed, which is mostly shabby chic. So I'm going to start organizing in there. I had some vignettes that were getting really bare, so I'm going to start working on some items for that. But these are going to be kind of more of a primitive country look, and I'm going to start with this stool, and this is how it was. It was already painted, and I did some extra distressing on it. And now I'm going to put this stencil on it, and I'm kind of trying to create more of the look of maybe an old crate. So this stencil, I felt like suited it more. And what I'm going to do is use my black Stays On ink, and I'm not going to add any ink to my pad that really needs to be refreshed, because I want this to be almost a faded look, almost like the stool was made from old pallet wood, although I know this on top is too thick. I'm just trying to create that look. So I'm just going to use my black Stays On ink and a little paintbrush or a little makeup brush, and just kind of lightly stencil this on. Now, I just showed you a close-up of that brush because I get lots of questions about what kind of brush that I use on stenciling when I'm stenciling with my ink. And this is what more often than not I use. And you can actually, I used to order these from Amazon, and but you can actually buy these at the Dollar Tree now when they have them in. But they're just a really good design to use for this stenciling. And now, because this stencil didn't go all the way down and I wanted it to start at the very top, then I'm going to add another stencil that has kind of that crate look also, and I'll just put certified on the bottom. Now I'm going to look as many of the stencils up as I can find that I'm working on in this vignette and add that in the description. I'm not sure if I can find this one or not, but I'm going to search for it. And now, because I want this to look old, I'm just going to put some brown glaze over it and just give this more of an aged look. And then all that distressing is going to grab even darker, and then it will take away this white look and just give this a lot better look for the area that I'm putting it in. So I'll go over the whole stool with this glaze. And then when I finish that, because this is a tall stool, I'm going to, I had a little basket disc or circle that I'm going to use that same glaze on, and I'm putting it on heavy because I want to make sure that it gets down in all these little crevices. And so I just put it on heavy. I know this seems wasteful, but then I just wipe it off. And I think this is Krylon glaze that I'm using on this. Now, I didn't want to use brown wax because the brown waxes to me seem like they grab a little red, and I just didn't want that. I wanted more of a brown look. So I'm just going to stain this whole thing, and then it will set right on the bottom. And I'm sorry I didn't get a video of that. We had the store tore apart, and I was having a hard time remembering to get my videos that I needed to finish this. So I just set this right on the bottom of that stool, and you'll see it in my vignette in the end. But this just kind of sets on the bottom, and I didn't attach it or anything. I just set it there. That way you can use that area to display, but then you don't have to worry about limiting your stool if someone just wants to buy it just for a stool. As you can see, this brown glaze has just a lot prettier look, I think, than trying to use the brown wax. The brown wax has its place, but I just I like the color that I get from this. And then I'm going to do this little table also. I just bought this at an online auction the other day, and I like the finish that's on it, but I want to add a little something to it to make it maybe stand out a little from just any little half moon table. So I'm using the cotton white stays on ink here, and because it's more of a sticky finish, I end up having to do a couple of coats on this to make it show up better. So I went over the Bakery and Fresh Daily I did in the cotton white, and then the center line I just did that in black. And then I was worried about the black not showing up very well, but I think it ends up showing up just enough. And here is my husband working on a light for our jewelry area that we did, and you just didn't feel like you had enough light to see the jewelry, so he's installing some lights for me today, so I'm sorry that I got that in my video. And then I thrifted a set of coasters, and I've already painted 2 coats of white over the image that was already on them. And now I'm going to use my Crockery stamps, and these are IOD Crockery stamps. And I use these a lot, but these are going to be perfect for these little tile coasters. And so I'm just going to pick 4 of these images that fit well on my coaster and just stamp those on with my Stays On ink. And I'm adding some ink to this one because I want to make sure that this one shows up really well. I got to meet a sweet viewer today. Her name was Catherine, and she's from California, and she was here looking at some property and stopped by to see me, so I enjoyed meeting her and her daughter. So thank you, Catherine, for taking the time to come by and see me. So again, I inked these up really well, and then I'll put one on, and then I'm going to take my Stays On ink and go around all the edges and just kind of use the ink pad to rub across those edges. And that extra contrast really helped this. But I'm really pressing it down because, again, I want it to really be a crisp image. And one of the reasons that I want it to be extra sharp is because I'm going to take what I have left on my rag from the Van Dyke Brown Glaze and just kind of lightly rub it over this to give it more of an aged look. So if I'm not careful and this is not a good crisp image, then I'll lose some of it when I do that aging. But first I'm going to go put a stamp on all of these, and I use 4 different stamps, and after I go over all those with those stamps and the ink around the edges, then I'll do that antiquing. And as you can see, this black around the edges really makes a difference in these. And I could have left them white like this and would have been happy with them, but the particular vignette that I'm putting them in, it needs to have that aged look. And then once I'm done with that, then I will spray these all with a couple of coats of a clear finish so that they can be used as coasters, and I don't have to worry about anything messing up my image when it gets wet. But coasters are such an easy item to do, and although buying coasters new are not the cheapest, you can find older coasters at thrift stores and yard sales that you can make over, and most will be in really good condition because a lot of people don't use coasters. They'll get them for looks more than anything and not use them. So the main thing is that the cork bottom is clean and it doesn't look like it's been used. So when you buy them to make over, just make sure that cork bottom looks good. But here, because I'm going to be going over this with that brown glaze, and I don't want it to take too much, I don't want this paint to soak it up too much, I'm going over all of them with some clear wax, and then I'll go over them with the glaze. And then obviously I'll have to make sure that this wax is very, very dry before I try to spray these with a clear coat. And when I finish these, I'm just going to put them all four together, and then I will wrap some jute twine around it and put a hang tag on it. And this makes a very good little gift, very easy, and something that you can sell at a good price. And because I didn't get a lot of my after pictures today, then I'm just going to, at the end, give you some extra time looking at the vignette so you could see more close up the items that I made over. And then here I am using that old rag to add some antiquing to this. And then in this particular vignette, I'm also going to be adding some burlap sacks. And I had a viewer ask if I could do these on camera because she saw some in one of my vignettes, and I almost hate to do these because they're so simple. So I almost hate to show you how because it seems very obvious. But just knowing what products to use, I'm sure will be a help. And I just use my StaysOn ink here. And that same makeup brush that you can get at the Dollar Tree, and I'm just gonna go over these burlap sacks with these stencils. And I usually put something inside of my bags to keep from having bleed through when I'm using paint, but you don't have to do that when you're using the ink. So that's another thing that makes these easier. But I just like the sharp look that you get from the stencils when you're using that StaysOn ink and a brush. And obviously you could use other inks, but I just happen to like the StaysOn because I feel like it really stays put. And if you want this to be washable, most likely it will never be washed because I don't know if you've ever tried to wash burlap, but it just isn't a really good result. But if you were to need to, you can heat set this with your iron over some parchment paper, and that will help it stay put even more. But again, I don't think that this will ever be washed. So I'm just going over this with the stencil, and I'm going to include these stencils in my description. You can get a whole set of these, and you'll have lots to choose from that will fit these bags. And these bags I got years ago from a wholesale place called Mill Creek Trading Company. And I don't even know if they're still in business, but I don't think they have very much of anything now, so I don't order from them anymore. That's why I stopped ordering, but I suspect that they may be completely out of business at this point. But this bag is probably maybe 10 by 12 in that neighborhood. But you can find burlap sacks on Amazon at a pretty good price. Now these I probably only have maybe 25 cents in them because I got them so long ago. But I'm sure you can get them for 50 cents or at least less than $1 each. And then I add this stencil, and I'll get $3 to $4 on these. And again, you can stencil these with paint if you'd rather. You just need to put something inside the bag to keep from bleeding through to the back. I wouldn't recommend using stamps on these. I haven't had very good luck with that at all. And obviously you can do these in color. I just like the black and white look because I feel like it doesn't compete with any other colors in your vignette, and it just works in most any little area that you want to decorate with in the farmhouse kitchen area, that is. And this little set has several stencils in it. Now, I think I do have a couple different types of stencils in this bag, but any of these farmhouse sets, they come with a lot of stencils usually. So you'll have lots to choose from in this size that will fit onto those bags really well. But I want to keep these, although there's a lot of these that are cute, I want to keep these with that same primitive style. So I'm being very selective as to the ones that I'm going to use on this. Again, I'm going to be adding these stencils to my description. Now, I love using these burlap sacks, but even more than I like using these, I like the flower sacks. And you can also find those on Amazon, and I will try to find either the burlap sacks or the flower sacks and include that in my description. And now here is everything. See, as you can see, I put that little wooden disc on the bottom so that I would have a shelf there, and it's not permanent. And then there is that little table that I put the stencil more toward the front on, because anytime that you're going to have something sitting on the table, you want some of that stencil to still show. So that's why I put it toward the front. But there is my little stool and my table. Oh, and there's the coaster set right in front of the canisters. And I just put a little tag that had a little crockery jug on it, on those coasters, to add to the look of that and make it more giftable. Now, I could have added a shelf to the bottom of that stool, but I didn't want that to be permanent again. I wanted just to be able to use it as a shelf in my vignette, but not limit the stool if someone were to buy it. And I know this is kind of a simple vignette, but it just was one that was needed in my little area. So everything that I'm doing, I'm trying to film. Aside from the little garden section, we've been working on that kind of behind the scenes, and I'll show that later. Now, this is a baby bed spring, and so my husband just built a little wooden frame around it, and I stained that frame, and we'll use that to kind of hang things on to sell, and then you don't have to put so many holes in your wall. But I thought this was a good place to display some of my little sacks as well. We're working on so many areas in the store, just kind of completely changing them up. So I'm going to start working on a video that I can show you guys through all of the areas. So as soon as I'm finished, I will do a shop tour video. Now, I had these little brown crock canister set, and I thought about doing something, adding something to them, or even painting the brown, but I may at some point do that. Right now, I'm just going to see how they sell like that. Anytime I can put something out the way I got it, it just saves a lot of time and effort, and I usually try it unless I'm just pretty certain that it won't sell. But then you always have the option later, if it doesn't sell, just to make it over. So I'm hoping I don't have to paint those, because obviously canisters are way more usable when you don't have to paint them. So I'll just give them a chance and see how they go. And my husband keeps telling me that just because I don't like something doesn't mean someone else won't. As long as it goes in the primitive style, then I don't mind putting it out. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I hope to see you in the next. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great evening, and God bless you and your family.